Hey folks, thanks for checking out another Blizzard related video here with me on YouTube. I'm Napalm Dawn, and today is one of those days to be in person for this one. Lot of stuff has been going on with Blizzard lately, and we'll see the NVIDIA broadcast app is trying to do some camera effects over there, and I'm fading in and out like the Ghostbusters almost. But anyway, so several things have come to light in just the last few days, none of which is particularly very good for Blizzard. So on the 22nd, which was almost a week ago, Jason Schreier did a article over on Bloomberg that talked about the troubled history of Warcraft 3 Reforged. By the way, before I continue with this video, I just want to say a few things in regards to Marvel Avengers Alliance Redux. I know a lot of people visit the channel for updates and content on that. As I've stated before, I can only move at the pace of the development team of that. If I have news, you have to trust the fact that I have news and will give it to you the moment that I have it. If you're not seeing me cover it, it means there isn't news. Frankly, it is ridiculously frustrating to go through every video that isn't related to Redux and see Redux related comments about it. It tells me you as a viewer pigeonhole me as a one-trick pony about Marvel Avengers Alliance content. And obviously Redux is the only way you get MAA content now. But something that I want to point out, this is the background of my channel on YouTube. This is the inner workings of it. You'll see here that my most viewed clip was from the Wrath of the Lich King beta in World of Warcraft. At the time when TBC was around, this was the Wrath of the Lich King beta. It's nearly 6 digits at 77k, and then there were some Tim's Tech Corner videos about a Dell Streak, an HTC Flyer, a Asus Transformer. Then comes the Marvel Avengers Alliance Redux Alpha 5, back to a Tim's Tech Corner, and then WoW stuff. Including literally a ride on a motorcycle in the Wrath beta, and that was 22k. It takes quite a bit to see a lot of MAA related content down the list over here, especially when a World of Warcraft one kind of rules my channel. So I just want to remind people of that yeah, that's nice to check out the channel for Redux related content, and it will happen. Goofy updates us on Discord and Facebook and everything with all of the stuff that he's doing. Lately, you can actually get the content from him, but when Beta 4 is actually released, you have to rest assured that it will be on my channel the instant I get it, because that's how involved we're all on it. When I cover other things, you just have to respect that and leave the Redux stuff out. It's like work stuff and fun stuff. Obviously Redux stuff is fun, but you catch my drift of like leaving your work at work when you leave at the end of the day. Anyway, so back onto this, that having been said, this article describes the very troubled development cycle of Warcraft 3 Reforged, and how Blizzard allowed a game that was so monumental in their gaming history, and the thing that was the jumping off platform to World of Warcraft, and just trashed it. They literally put it in a juicer and hit the frappe setting on it. It is one of the most panned games ever. It is one of the most negatively reviewed games ever. I think it's like a 0.6 player score, and that is below games that get scores that low because of things like monetization practices and whatnot. Clearly, Warcraft 3 was not victimized by a cancel culture or things like that. It was actually victimized by their own press and then their own actual release, somewhat similar to No Man's Sky, if you think about it. So you cannot blame anybody other than Blizzard for it. You cannot blame the pandemic for it, because it came out about a month before Americans were really even aware of the pandemic. It came out in January 2020. So obviously the dev cycle does not line up with the itis. So the fact that we had games come out during the pandemic cycle, like Marvel's Avengers, like Final Fantasy VII, that saw at least some development during it, and they managed to pass their dates but still hit their marks as games. I mean, not even Marvel's Avengers is thought of as negatively as Warcraft 3 Reforged is, so that tells you something. People call it a disappointing remaster, and they lament the fact that Warcraft 3, the original one that people love, that had stats, that had ladder systems, were competitive, is gone. And then this game came around and didn't even provide those features. It was so bad, Blizzard went and did a no questions asked refund system with it, which, as you all know, games are really reluctant to do that. They need to be pushed into it, like Cyberpunk, and games that get that bad. They jumped over to that really quickly, probably because they knew. And this article goes on to say that the reason why they jumped to that is because they knew it was a trash game. It had unclear vision, it had mismanagement, it had misalignment, whether it was a remaster or a remake. They overpromised and were crunched into under-delivering, horribly under-delivering. There was bug fixing and other tasks, but it didn't actually... They put band-aids on the body that was Warcraft 3, but nobody fixed, a compound fracture of somebody's tibia hanging out, or, somebody's neck canted to the left because of a spinal injury. I mean, it was really, really bad, and they didn't do enough to fix it or try to fix it, and now that makes people scared about things like the Diablo 2 remake, which for all purposes do seem to be really kick-ass. Like, from what we know about the Diablo 2 remake, it's going to be quite good, but people are still scared about it. And for Blizzard, which has never really had a failed product up until Reforged 3, it was shocking to see with them. I mean, there were World of Warcraft expansions that were not thought of well, but in actual games, Blizzard took what people were playing and made it ridiculously mainstream. There were RTSs before Warcraft and StarCraft. You had Dune, you had Total Annihilation, you had Command and Conquer. I mean, there were some beloved RTSs out there beforehand, but look at what the Warcraft series did and StarCraft series did for RTS gaming. I mean, there was probably a point where StarCraft 2 was like the national sport of South Korea. So to have such a miserable failure and have it be so huge and monumental and impactful, it was really shocking to see from Blizzard. But the problem was Bobby Kotick, the shit-faced fuckweasel, and Activision's Money, 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 Money Ted DiBiase theme song put too much pressure on Blizzard to get that out there, and it wasn't done right. And they felt the power of the greed overlords just basically saying, work with what you're given, rub these two sticks together, make a fire. Here's a slightly pointy stick. I hope you kill that elk for dinner, otherwise you're going hungry. And that's what they did. The post-mortem, which is a, if you're not familiar with the term, a post-mortem is, so how did the project go? It has a really scary name. It sounds like graveyard in a lot of ways. Mortem, how did it go? How did it die? But the post-mortem says we should have held back. We weren't ready to take pre-orders. We weren't ready to ship, and we did all that, and it was bad. They weren't supported within Blizzard. They had to beg for help. Every other project was basically bigger. Rob Breidenbecker, who was the head of the Classic Games team who was working on it at the time, was known for being aggressive, likely Activision style, and was taking frequent trips out of the country either due to vacation or business, but he wasn't really around to help. And the team burnt out with exhaustion, anxiety, and depression. They've lost trust in the team and the company, and this game has tarnished Blizzard's image. And these people know that they worked on the product that did it. And then the 800 people mass layoff happened, and then the Blitzchung thing happened for Hearthstone, and then Biffa was becoming a failure, and then Shadowlands couldn't quite pull Blizzard out of the well that Warcraft 3 and HOTS' failure and Biffa were putting it into. Shadowlands needed to knock it out of the park like Legions or Wrath of the Lich King, or for me, like even Cataclysm, although some people don't consider Cata as good as Wrath. Or Classic, the way Classic was helping the company out. Shadowlands needed to be an 8 or a 9.2 kind of a deal, anywhere from like 8 to a 9.2-ish on the scale, maybe 8.5 to 9.2, and it's kind of coming in as like a 5.5 or 6. It's not the 4 that Biffa was, it's not the 2 that Warlords of Draenor was, but it's, you don't fix a 4 with a 6. You need an 8 or a 9 to offset that, and this is not an 8 or a 9 expansion. And with everything else that Blizzard has done, and you know, as people pointed out with the Hearthstone situation, their apology at BlizzCon was nominal at best. It was as close to a hand wave as you can get without actually saying they just hand waved it. And their motto is like, all voices are heard, and you see the inclusivity in Overwatch and things like that, but they just strung this guy up, and there's only one reason why, and it's corporate Chinese overlords. And it's sad to say that about a company that I love so much, but, and yes, China's viewing habits of the World of Warcraft movie are hopefully enabling us to get a second movie, which I would love to see, but they're putting too much into like the Tencent kind of thing over here, and we're seeing censorship in American WoW so that it goes over okay in China, and it's really disgusting, and that pressure is breaking Blizzard. And it's creating scenarios like this. They vowed to patch and update Warcraft 3 Reforged, but it hasn't happened. And again, the old game is dead. You cannot go back and play the old game, and this new one doesn't have stats or ladders or ranking. And I can tell you, I played at provinggrounds.com, and you can find it on the Wayback Machine because it's dead now. But I played it on there from, 99 to about 2005-ish or so. And I played a lot of first-person shooters over there. I was a competitive player. Aside from the games you expected to see competitive ladders for, your Quakes, your Halos, your Unreal Tournaments, we had a Warcraft 3 ladder on that site. That's how big the game was. And that's how many people played it. And it was that competitive, is that there was a ladder system on a gaming site about an RTS. You'd never really seen that before. You didn't see a Dune ladder or Command and Conquer one. And we've never really seen one like that since, other than the esports scene with like StarCraft and everything. So to kill that is disgusting, and outside modders called the Warcraft 3 Champions team are left trying to pick up the shattered and tattered pieces of Warcraft 3 Reforged and make it into a viable game, because they probably know they have to. with the old Warcraft 3 not really being that available unless you go and work with the Champions team and how they're doing it with like your CD key and everything, that's it. You're screwed. You've been screwed in this process. So it is a huge black stain on the company. And that takes us to the current stain on the company, and that is the ongoing story about what is the culture was like on the World of Warcraft team within Blizzard over the last decade. Now, okay, let's keep this in mind over here. People are innocent until proven guilty. Until this is resolved in a court of law, there are people in this who are most definitely innocent. And innocent people shouldn't have their livelihoods destroyed. That is a very clear thing. I mean, for example, let's look at what happened with Chris Hardwick. Chris Hardwick was deleted for a while, and then he's back, and he got back with The Walking Dead, and he was back at the Comic-Cons and everything. Not every time something is run up the flagpole is it actually a legitimate true flag. Keep that in mind. However, also looking at what is coming out as facts is you have to take into account this was a undercover investigation for many years. This isn't journalistic reporting. This is an actual suit, a lawsuit in a legal entity within California. That alone tells you the serious nature of it. The more and more proof that we're seeing, the statements from J. Allen Brack, the statements from Ben Brody and Chris Metzen and Mike Morhaime, and a goddamn torture apologist from the Bush era that is now with Blizzard, and I did a video on that a while back, I'm not going to say a long time ago, within the last year or so. There is a 9/11 torture protector from the government, from George Bush's government, that now works at Blizzard. And she's just come straight out and been like, this is bullshit, this is false, this is, blah, blah, blah. Yet maybe in modern Blizzard, maybe in the last couple of years this isn't happening, but we can see proof of this culture existing as late as 2013 and potentially as early as 2010. If you look at the video of the girl asking for, can we not have boobs out armor for the women, and the guys are like, ha 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 ha. And her face just breaks several times in that. Just keep that in mind. So, before we get into the most recent development, I'm going to throw Blizzard a bit of a bone here and say maybe things are getting better, and have been for a while, because when Overwatch dropped, there was a very infamous controversy about Tracer. There was what was called Buttgate, where Tracer had a pose doing what I called the titty butt pose, where you show a little bit of some side boob and the butt, and she had a gun up like here, and you could see her from behind, and you saw a little bit of side boob, and a dad wrote in on the forums and was like, I want, my young daughter loves this game, but she expressed some issues about that pose for Tracer, and he is like, that's not part of her character to be sexy, and essentially that's like a Widowmaker thing. Why is it happening to Tracer? Why are we getting such a typical, male-dominated pose, patriarchy kind of pose for Tracer over here? It doesn't fit, and it's very disappointing. And Blizzard changed it. Blizzard removed that pose and substituted a new one for the round winning screen. It was a pose that was used if Tracer was on a team that won a round. That goes to show you that at least in that instance, Blizzard was trying to change. This wasn't a media outcry. This wasn't a huge Twitter blow up. This was on Blizzard's own Overwatch forums. One dude, a dad, who said, like, I don't want this for my daughter. Can we do something about it? And they did. And it became known as Buttgate. So that should show you that Blizzard has maybe changed more recently. All the fairness aside, in this era that we're talking about in WoW, it's super bad. And today, one of the more damning pieces has been revealed in this. It's, let's be clear, it's pretty damning that a woman took her own life rather than face the sexual harassment at her workplace, Blizzard. That is off the charts disgusting. It truly, truly is. That somebody feels there was no way out. They couldn't even think about getting another job. That they're like, my life is over with what I'm facing at my job, and they were that depressed that they took their own life. That's awful. This certainly approaches that, and that in 2013, Alex Afrasiabi, who's the only one named in the suit aside from J. Allen Brack, and not that J. Allen Brack was named in the suit as a perpetrator, he was named as, like, he knew about this and he didn't do anything, but Alex has been named all over the suit, and in 2013, their hotel room for BlizzCon was called the Bill Cosby Suite. And there's a picture of Bill Cosby right there on the bed with them. Now, here in 2021, we know what that entails. We've known what that entails since 2018, at the very least. And at this point, in 2013, allegations had been made against him, but it hadn't proceeded to a court yet. So that's the fuel for the fire over here. We are looking at glorifying, they say, previously convicted rapists. I will use the terminology, obviously for legal reasons. The previously convicted rapist Bill Cosby, who's only out on a technicality, let's be fair. So, PCR, Bill Cosby. In this event, in these BlizzCons, Alex was known to hit poorly, strongly on these female employees, telling them he wanted to marry them, attempt to kiss them, put his arms around them, in plain view of other male employees who didn't do that much, but eventually some would intervene and pull him off the female employees. And the sad thing is, you're like, okay, so how was this guy not shit-canned earlier? How did this perpetuate? Supposedly one of the people in this picture is actually in HR. One of these dudes is an HR dude. So the Cosby Suite was more than just a nickname or a joke. Based on the images he posted to Facebook at the time, it was a booze-filled meeting place, and they posed with the portrait of Bill Cosby while smiling. It became a hotspot for informal networking. This is the alcohol setup they had. So they had a bunch of Canada Dry, tonic over here, ginger ale, and there's some Kettle Ones. There's some Coke back there. Not really too sure what the cans are. Yeah, a couple different kinds of Kettle One and everything. I mean, this is a kit. There's the ice bucket filled up, the red Solo cup. I mean, what's the immediate thing that you think of when you see the red Solo cup? Party. What is probably the most common party you think of when you see the red Solo cup? Keg party, college party. That's what this is. This was an extension of the college party life, the kegger life. And I'm going to tell you, I lived it in college, was there, attended quite a few parties in my time over there. This cup and I have a relationship. Not one of those blackout drunk type people, or not, alcoholic or given into alcoholism, but I had my fair share of keggers in college, including actually hosting one around a graduation time. But quotes of the group chat for this Facebook page were, "I'm gathering hot chicks for the cause. Bring them in. You can't marry all of them." Alex Kazak writes, "I can because I'm Middle Eastern." Responds Alex, but then Jesse McCree, currently a lead game designer at Blizzard, then writes, "You misspelled the F word." Meaning, you're saying marry, but we know what you really mean. and that was to get it wet. Screenshots all in the album. Here's the conversation screenshot. Stockton and McCree did not immediately respond. Street and Kozik declined to comment, so that means they were reached, but they said no comment. Here's Corey Stockton saying it's probably the greatest group chat in the history of mankind back in 2013. November is always when they do BlizzCon, so that lines up. According to one source, the Cosby Suite was a name. It really was a play on the name of the comedian's iconic ugly sweaters and didn't have a sexual connotation, at least not when the joke began. The running joke was that the room in question looked dated like his sweater. And then somebody else said it was actually a reference to an ugly boardroom back at Blizzard main office. However, all the pictures of the BlizzCon hotel room reviewed by Kotaku show that the walls were white and blank and the decor was vanilla, nondescript. The rug visible in the photographs does have a pattern but doesn't look like his tacky sweaters. Some say the Cosby Suite was... Other people have pushed back on the joke about the Cosby Suite, saying that by the time they moved to their new campus in 2008, 5 years before this was captured over here, everything was freshly painted and there was no ugly boardrooms. Plus, all the comments about the Cosby Suite from the people involved in it were sexual in nature. One image procured by Kotaku has a group of women sitting on the bed in the room with the Cosby portrait. One woman appears to have had a hand on another's breast, which is cheered on by the men in the comments, according to the images procured, and to sources knowledgeable of Alex's predatory behavior. Cosby's reputation was the whole point of why they gathered around the picture. It was such a boys' club that Cosby Suite was seen as funny. Except for the fact that you were able to get laid on it, and they had hashtags like Cos approved. One source told Kotaku that Kozak was actually one of the few people who tried to intervene when a Blizzard developer was sexually harassing them. The Cosby Suite, the BlizzCon Cosby crew chat also had questions about other high-ranking Blizzard developers. And while Street recently apologized for the sexist panel for the World of Warcraft fan at 2010, he's saying he was one of the people that was up there when that lady asked that question about can we have less boob armor. He didn't give any public indication that he was aware of the involvement with the Cosby Suite, despite the fact that it's actually mentioned in the lawsuit. So the Cosby crew is in the lawsuit. That's how serious it is. Alex did leave mysteriously last year with no official announcement. He just kind of grabbed his stuff and went out the back door and he slunk away. Up until the filing of the lawsuit becoming public, many of his contributions in the game persisted. Now, however, things referencing his name, including NPCs and the gear, are being removed. So people have reported going to where his character was in Stormwind and watching him blink out of existence, and then maybe appears really briefly and people get like one spit on him and then he goes away. Blizzard, at least within World of Warcraft, is trying to get these things out of there. Many people are saying it's not enough. They need to write the real life people to be held accountable. But at least the Afrasiabi stuff is going away, and it's not appearing in game. And I always knew the name sounded familiar to me because the last name without the leading A is how I know some of the gear from the game. I'm not Alliance, so I didn't know the NPC, but I knew some of the gear that bore his name. And the Führer's Blade, Führer was a name related to him the way Tiggle was related to Jeff Kaplan. J. Allen Brack's message didn't really take into account that he's been named in the suit too. He just talked about it troubling for others. There's the Alliance character that's not in the game anymore. There's the statement they released saying it's distorted and false. That's the torture apologist lady who said that. With everything that is happening, When you hear about the suicide and the death, you know that Bobby Kotick is a greedy fuckface weasel. You see Alex's terrible, terrible proclivities here. You hear this Cosby stuff, literally idolizing an accused rapist at the time. And, you know, the whole roofie colada kind of thing, like Quagmire. When you see all that, and then you look at Warcraft, which is a game that I've been involved with since the Warcraft beta in 2004, it is heart-wrenching, the state of everything now. There are YouTubers, there are press outlets all breaking away from this. Preach Gaming, I watched a relatively emotional video from Preach Gaming where he is stopping his coverage of WoW. And as my girlfriend said, imagine not only just the game being an extension of you, but you make a living off of it too. You're a content producer on it. You get money from it, and you supposedly enjoy it. People have hated what Blizzard has become over the last few years, and the fact that they don't listen. They didn't listen in Battle for Azeroth. They're not listening now with the domination sockets and the gear. And as people have often said, they're making it hard for players to continue to enjoy their game. People who like story are disappointed in story beats and some of the ridiculous retconning that they do, and you know, that is why people gravitate to Final Fantasy XIV, because they're so happy with the story once they get past the base game and everything. Realm Reborn. Now you have contenders to the MMO throne with 14, with Amazon's New World, which isn't really receiving the most... they're not receiving the most negative press in the world right now, so they're doing okay. For somebody like me, who has ran a guild that was an extension of running several teams within a clan, I've seen marriages happen through the guild in World of Warcraft. I've had 2 relationships due to the guild in World of Warcraft. One is continuing right now, and I've been a part of for 11 years. I've seen cheating go on between people that I knew in the guild. I've seen mental abuse go on. I've seen divorces. We've seen 2 members die since the guild has been around. One who doesn't play anymore that is probably severely physically disabled, if not dead at this point. That person I made cry because they were repeatedly having strokes that were taking mobility away from the left side of their body, and he didn't know about gamepad keyboards like the Logitech Nostradamus at the time, and like the Razer, God, I forget the name of it, but you know the ones that I'm talking about. They're a small keypad, they had the joystick on it, the Razer Tarantula, or the Tarantula, yeah, the Tarantula I think it's called. He didn't know they existed. And when he was telling me it's getting harder and harder to play, the left side of my body's not functioning like it used to, I recommended one of them. I was like, look at the Nostromo? Or Nostradamus? Yeah, it's the Nostromo. Look at the Nostromo. And he came back a few days later, and he's like, my girlfriend ordered one of these for me. He's like, thank you so much. I can't believe the tears that I'm in right now that you cared enough to recommend this. This is saving my enjoyment of WoW. Sorry, as a cop car goes by. You were saving my enjoyment of WoW. I can actually like play this now and do better at it because I can rearrange my desk around this better. He was in tears that somebody just made what I thought was an offhand recommendation to the guy. And he was losing his mind that somebody cared enough to mention something like that. I'm like, oh, I didn't think I was that heroic for mentioning it, but he's just telling me he's crying that somebody cared enough for it and that his girlfriend got it. And he loved WoW that much, it enabled him to continue playing long after he thought he could never play it again. I missed a real life friend's marriage to go and visit a girlfriend that I had at the time through World of Warcraft. I could have gone to two friends' marriage that developed through World of Warcraft. I've seen it all and I've done it all as being a GM, and it is an emotionally depressing thing to see this news about Blizzard, to just see it as the cupcake below all the turd frosting that World of Warcraft has done over the years, with them not listening to the player base and introducing systems that people hate, like these domination sockets, and a lack of tier gear, and saying domination sockets are tier gear now. To see that the cupcake part of this is so rotten, it's like watching your childhood getting blown apart. It's like growing up loving in Transformers and Voltron, and somebody telling you that Voltron was about Satanists and pedophilia, and you're like, what? And they're like, here's the proof, look at this, see? Satanists and pedophilia. And you're like, oh my god. And your childhood is just ruined at that revelation. That's what it's like to hear this about Blizzard. And there's going to be some really hard decisions to make in the near future. We've already said we're stopping after we finish this raid tier, and that's just awful to think about. There's people who staged a walkout today in line with Blizzard's employee walkout. So, I used to rag on Inhuman Beatdown, and who covered Marvel Avengers Alliance back in the day, because he did a video one time of just crying. It's so hard. It's just so hard to play this game, and I can't stand this game anymore. And the PvP is so hard. I can't take it anymore. It's just so hard. I was like, get the fuck out of here, dude. Like, this is bullshit. I don't take that back, because this is a wildly different scenario than PvP being too hard. But you can see how people get that emotional over these games, and there were people who cried when Marvel Avengers Alliance wrapped up in 2016, and there's people that pretty much are doing it now as they walk away from the game. I've got a friend in the guild who wants nothing to do with any more Blizzard products, uninstalled them all, and said she's just hugely depressed over that, and having massive problems dealing with what she's hearing about Blizzard. And this is somebody who went to BlizzCon, was actually in the audience when they said, don't you guys have phones? She was there and saw it firsthand, which blows my mind. And this is what that company has given her as a response to a fan. I have a statue downstairs on my mantle that was sent to me because I played Blizzard for 10 years straight. That company is gone. The company who sent that to me around Christmas, and it's a good, heavy statue, and it sits on my mantle in between college and high school diplomas of myself and my girlfriend, and family pictures and everything like that. That company's so dead. And this just proves it. It actually proves, why did we even care that much about them when all this was going on hidden under a rock at Blizzard? This coincides with everybody's like favorite era in Blizzard, and this rampant like sexism was going on at the time, and major harassment. It's just really disgusting what was going on over there. And for me, World of Warcraft is going to wind up suffering for it. I may still continue to play Overwatch because it's my favorite first-person shooter at the time. But yeah, this is a really dicey time to be any kind of a Blizzard fan. I don't know that anybody truly is a Blizzard fan at this point. So, thanks for checking out the video, guys. Yeah, it gets emotional covering this topic a little bit. So, thanks for letting me get some catharsis on this. Have a good one, folks.